Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Roll the Dice with Dave. So glad everybody can join us tonight. Want to welcome everybody that's on Facebook Live and those of you that are joining us on YouTube. I know tonight is a crazy night, and there's people checking out things all over the place with the presidential election, which I think is what's going to make tonight's show a little extra special for me. I have a very special guest on tonight. Can't wait to introduce her. Please go out there and like and share Roll the Dice with Dave. Would greatly appreciate that. Let's try and get as many people on this train as we can, trying to be the positive change we want to see in the world. So please like on Facebook and go ahead and share. Also, if you comment on the show this evening, or if you check it out on replay, please feel free to use the hashtag Roll the Dice with Dave, or go ahead and use hashtag replay. Well, we greatly appreciate it. Just to try and, again, see kind of what activity we're having, and also to try and be the positive change we want to see in the world and get as many people on this bandwagon as we can. It is finally here. November 3rd has arrived. So hopefully you have gone out and voted. If you early voted or voted today, thank you so much for being a part of everything that is going on, regardless of who you voted for. Please go out, make your voice heard. Glad you are participating in your right to vote. If you're interested in being on the show, or if you're interested in having us discuss a certain topic, please feel free to reach out. You can comment on the stream, or you can go ahead and reach out at rollthedicewithdave@gmail.com. Would love to have different guests from all different walks of life, and also different topics. So if there's anything that you would like to see discussed and want to be a part of it, please reach out so we can go ahead and get it on the list for Roll the Dice with Dave. And again, thank you for everybody that has been tuning in or has been reaching out. I've met a lot of great, interesting people as a result of this. The show is doing what I was hoping it was going to do for me, which is just kind of give me a platform to talk and just kind of help with my mental health and well-being. And I've connected with a lot of people and had a lot of great conversations. So today we're going to get into this. We're going to be the change we want to see in the world. And we are going to be talking about what's going on tonight. So we are going to talk a little about live election results. But the guest I have on this evening is a great guest. I'm really excited to have this individual on the show. So let me go ahead and bring her out. And the guest that I have on the show this evening is my daughter, Sadie Rivera. Sadie, do you mind introducing yourself to everybody?
Hi, my name is Sadie. I am a 20-year-old sophomore at West Texas A&M University out in Canyon, Texas. I'm studying music education, and like my dad said, this is my first election that I'm voting in.
So that's an exciting thing. I also like how you squeezed in 20 years old. You still got a couple of weeks. You're making me feel old by saying 20 years old. We still got a couple of weeks. Don't make me older than what I already feel old as it is, but your birthday is coming up. We're really excited about that. Really pumped about that for you to turn 20, and pumped that this is your first election. So you told us a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us, you're still growing up in my eyes, even though you are 20 years old, you're still growing up in my eyes. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the role models that you've had?
Obviously, if I went into music, a lot of the big role models I have are going to be my band directors. That's very lighthearted. Obviously, my father, that's a very expected answer as I'm talking to him right now. My grandparents, both sets, my mom's parents and my dad's parents have both been extreme influences in my life, as well as my Theo Damien. He's a really big one. He doesn't realize it, but he really is as well.
It's actually quite an impressive list of people you have there, minus your dad. Everybody else is very, very impressive. I'm just kind of whatever. Especially when it comes to my brother, your Theo, as you mentioned, he's got to be one of the best men I think we both know. So glad to hear that. So another little question that I always ask guests at the beginning is, can you tell me 3 words people would use to describe you?
Honest, kind, and determined, I think, are 3 that would work.
Okay, honest, kind, determined. I like that. Those are 3 really good words. You are also, you left out one, amazing. You are amazing. And I'm not being biased. You've done a lot of great, amazing things over the time, and I'm really proud to be your dad. So wanted to throw that out there. Another question I wanted to ask. So what are you most excited about to do once this quarantine and lockdown measures are lifted? Oh, you froze up on me, Sadie. Where'd you go? So while we're waiting for Sadie to check back in, she's getting a little refresh. Is it you good to go? All right. So the question was, what are you most excited to do after all the quarantine and lockdown measures are lifted?
I'm excited to go work with kids in the field of music. Right now, we're not allowed to do anything in regards to observations, lessons. We're not able to do those things, and I'm getting to the point that I need those to help better my education because I'm going into music education. So I'm excited for those.
Cool. All right. So one of the things that we do have going on here tonight is we are talking about the election. So one of the things I wanted to pull up just to see where we're at. So I'm hitting a quick refresh. Let me see if this will pop in. So here's a little screen share. So right now, one of the predictions right now shows Joe Biden is potentially up 119 to 92. And this is according to the Associated Press. And one of the things they do want to mention is that right off the bat, they are not calling this race as far as official numbers. So right now, Biden is ahead of President Trump, 119 to 192, based on some of the preliminary numbers that are coming in. So I don't know what side of the aisle people are standing on, but that's where we are right now. So I want to move into the next little segment with you, Sadie, and what I call surprise questions. So the first one is, if you had to teach one class for the rest of your life, what would the class be that you would teach?
Band.
Really? So you would just teach. Now, that's such a wide open thing, though? Talking about teaching band, that's so wide open. Is there a specific area of band, or are you talking like marching band, symphonic band? Because being the dad of somebody who is all about music, I feel I've learned so much. So
I'm currently leaning towards going into elementary music. I'm currently leaning into going into elementary music. So little kids, probably.
All right. So
elementary music. So not even band.
So teaching elementary music or teaching people elementary music?
Teaching elementary music, not teaching people elementary music.
Okay, so teaching to the little kids. It's all about the little kids. All right. So here's the second thing. When you think about success, who comes to mind and why?
Probably you, because you dropped out of college and then look at where you are now.
Yo, that's crazy. You're going to call me out. Yes, I did drop out of college for that little bit. And it's funny. I'm sure Abuela and Abuelo will probably make a comment about that. But the bounce back, yes, there is a bounce back. College isn't always for everybody at a certain point in life. And for me, it just wasn't at that point. So thanks for calling me out on that. But I think it's a positive thing, right? That people can see, hey, sometimes you hit a speed bump and life does go on. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. What is something you like that you feel most people don't like?
About what? Like just in general?
You decide. Yeah.
What is something I like that most people don't like?
Yeah.
Bluntness, honesty. A lot of people, especially in my age group, don't know how to handle pure honesty. They want to hear what they think they want to hear, and they don't like the truth, as crappy as it may sound or as it may be. I live in a very non-confrontational generation, and I can't stand that. I want you to tell me how you feel and exactly what's going on. A lot of people don't.
That is true. A lot of people don't. I can definitely then say you are my daughter with that answer, because I'm also big for honesty. Sometimes the truth does hurt, but it has to be heard. So I like that answer. I actually don't like it. I absolutely love it. And even for me, if people tell me the truth, it may not be something I want to hear, but hey, sometimes you have to absorb it. So I do like that answer. So before we start moving into talking about kind of your first time voting experience, I just want to do another quick little recap just in case anybody has kind of hopped in. So I'm going to do another little screen share, and they haven't really done an adjustment. But based on what you see here, Sadie, is there anything that jumps out at you as a little surprising regarding some of the preliminary results that are coming in regarding the election?
A blue Texas.
Okay, a blue Texas. And before we go forward, I do want to put this up. So your Theo did put up there, "You can't handle the truth, a few good men." He put that up there as a saying, and then he said that's a great answer. I think also Theo Damien is a big fan of truth and not only speaking truth, but accepting truth upon himself. So you mentioned a blue Texas. Why is that so surprising to you? Now, I just highlighted something, and it shows that Biden is at 49.5%, Trump at 49.2%. So it's barely blue.
Oh.
It is barely blue based on preliminary numbers. There are 38 electoral votes on the line with this one. But why are you so surprised that Texas is coming in right now blue?
This will be the first time Texas blue, I think, since the 1940s is what I read. I know that in my area specifically, in Randall County, I think it's 17% more people in my age group of like 18 to 23 have voted in Randall County in this election early. 17% more than 2016. So more young people are voting in my county. Young people tend to vote blue. And so I could see Texas going blue, which would be, again, extremely unique considering it'd be the first time in a lot of years.
Yeah, and now there are some things I just want to ask you. Is there anything that you look at and you go, not surprised about that?
Red Florida.
Okay, so I was just talking about this with your brothers and with your mom. So there's several things that don't surprise me. I read South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So I was just saying I'm not surprised those are going from the aspect of red from there. But there's still a lot of time. So right now we are looking at an estimate of 119 to 92 in favor of Joe Biden. So I want to get to talking a little bit to you about just some things that have been going on regarding this being your first time getting to vote. So the first question I have for you is, when it comes to talking about politics with any of your friends, do you feel that some of your friends that had different political views just couldn't take the conversations that maybe you guys had?
I have not had any direct experiences where the other person was just flat out not able to have the conversation. So no, my best friend and roommate, we have really good conversations all the time. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, but the ability to have mature conversations is more important than the political ideals themselves, in my opinion. So I tend to avoid people who cannot handle adult conversations.
Okay. And, I met your roommate, and she's from Texas, right? She's from
Midland.
So the area, in case you guys are wondering, if you ever saw the movie Friday Night Lights, West Texas, you had the Permian Basin and all that. She is from around that area. So anytime you hear about West Texas football, typically that is the area that they're talking about. We had a chance to live out in West Texas and experience that firsthand. Very conservative views a lot of times in those areas. So I think that's where you're talking about kind of before the surprise with the blue in the state of Texas. But I think that's awesome that you guys can have good conversations. Next question, as a first-time voter, what were the biggest issues that mattered to you?
Basic human rights is a big one.
So, all right. So you say basic human rights. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because there is such a big umbrella of basic human rights. So whatever you feel comfortable as far as sharing, were there certain things as far as basic human rights that fell into this conversation of what was important to you?
The biggest example I can think of is my mother is a juvenile diabetic. She cannot survive without insulin. Insulin is insanely expensive, and I don't think that it's fair that her life be put on the line, because what if we couldn't afford the insulin? She's been a diabetic for almost 40-ish years now. Not everyone has that ability, and I don't think people their life should be put at risk because of medical conditions they can't control.
So, and you bring up a really good point, but then you also mentioned, what would happen if we couldn't afford. And there's a lot of people out there who can't afford these aspects. Were there anything else besides kind of the basic aspect of medical that jumped out at you as far as what you would consider basic human rights, or things that you would have liked to, or that not necessarily like to see, but that are important to you?
Not that I could think of off the top of my head.
All right. So moving to the next one, have you heard anything or paid any attention to the local elections in your area versus just the presidential?
I have not, because I didn't even realize I was registered to vote in Randall County until a week ago. So no.
Right, so you ran in and you were like, oh, I get to vote here in Randall County. I don't have to go back to Florida. I can, which would have been crazy. You come to Florida and they're like, hey, sorry, you can't vote because you're supposed to be voting out in Texas, right? So the aspect there, it's a good thing, we checked up on it and you were able to vote out there. So getting into being a first-time voter, right? Getting into being a first-time voter, how did you feel when you casted that vote?
Excited. It was okay. So I was extremely excited, but at the same time, this is a very crappy election to be a first election, in my opinion, just because everyone's so divided that no matter what you pick, no one's going to be happy with the outcome. You vote to do your part. However, in my deepest opinion, neither result is going to be great.
All right, so you just mentioned neither result is going to be great. And what do you mean by that statement as far as neither result is going to be great?
The parties are so split, we're going to go on a borderline civil war.
All right, so can you elaborate a little bit on that? You're saying we're going to be on a borderline civil war. So you're making some of these statements and you're like, oh, man, it's going to be crappy for both sides. Oh, it's going to be a borderline civil war. Is there anything specific that jumps out at you that's making you say these kinds of things regarding this election?
I've heard, I'm in the School of Music. A lot of us are very liberal, music, arts, drama, as a lot of you can guess, as it's expected. So a lot of the people around me are homosexual. A big thing that I've continually heard about and seen on social media is that Trump does get elected into office and gay rights and gay marriage rights get taken away. That the riots that we've seen such for Black Lives Matter are not going to look like anything compared to what's coming next from those kinds of riots, and just the continuation of the Black Lives Matter going into the gay rights, just things like that. People are not going to be happy if they're affected or they care for those affected. That's the biggest example I've been hearing about recently.
Okay. And, from my perspective, one of the scary things is no matter who wins, the other side is going to be just not happy, right? So from the aspect of just not happy and people not being able to control emotion. So I want to shift a second, instead of just the outward display of kind of violence, to my concern in dealing with college students is some of them, the mental health that potentially could come. So here at Flagler, we've set up all kinds of counseling, because if you're for one side or the other, almost that feeling of desperation that the world is coming to an end because my person is no longer is not going to be president. And what does that mean for from my side. So now you have people that align with President Trump who feel that if he doesn't win, one, there could be voter fraud, two, no longer president, and the aspect there of now all my conservative viewpoints are out the window. So that is one aspect. And here, this is a good point that the executive branch is only one of three, which is true. And I agree with that 100%. It is only one of three. But I think one of the things that a lot of people don't pay attention to is it doesn't matter that it's one of three, only makes up a third. People become very irrational when they feel that their side is not winning nowadays. So even on the other side, if Biden doesn't win, the idea is this is going to continue to push that negative narrative. But Amber did bring up a really good point. It is one of three. It represents a third. But it's right now the only third that people are focusing on and paying attention to and really care about. So moving on to the next little piece, because you mentioned one of the things that you heard. So where are you getting your political information from?
I get a lot of it from Twitter. A lot of it comes from Twitter. A lot of it comes from TikTok. TikTok is honestly where most of it comes from. And then whatever I see on TikTok, I take the liberty, if I find it interesting enough, if it's something that concerns me, I legitimately look it up. But TikTok is the basis of all of my interests politically, as odd as that may sound.
No, actually, I mean, looking at Donald Trump being the Twitter president, I think that's just the kind of next evolution of where things are going to go, especially with young voters, trying to catch them in their space, not trying to drag them to the older generation space. Because if that was the case, you'd still see a lot of newspaper ads and so on and so forth. And now it's really pushing and trying to meet you in your landscape. So there are actually a lot of people. I've had these conversations with students at Flagler, and they said, oh, I saw this on TikTok. So I went and started researching to see if that was true, what that person was saying. Here's another little comment. This election is arguably one of the most emotional-based elections of our lifetime. That is one of my old high school buddies, Luis Rivera, made that statement. And I agree. I think it's reached a point. And even, I'm not excluded from this, Sadie. I don't know if you feel this way, but did you feel a big tie emotionally that certain things that were said sparked certain levels of emotion?
Yes.
Can you share maybe what were some of the things that sparked the biggest feeling of kind of emotion when certain things were said?
Not that I can think of specifically. Like, there's a lot of things going through my mind at the moment, and I can't think of any absolute specific examples. If I think of one by the end, I'll bring it up.
Okay. No, that's fair. And it's one of those things like when a kid does something bad and the parent's like, if I told you once, I told you a million times, and the kid's sitting there, give me one example. And then a parent can't come up with one example because there's so damn many examples. And that's the situation right here. There's just so many. But I agree with you, Barbecue Lou, that there is just so much going on. I'm going to put this one up. My sister Josiah just put, when she hears the saying, "Make America Great Again," this makes me think of the Daily Show. Yeah, Sadie.
A lot of shirts I have seen around campus. I work in the Chick-fil-A on campus. I cannot stand the shirt that says "Make liberals cry again." I don't have as much of a problem with "Make America Great Again." Like, political slogans are political slogans, but it really bothers me when I see the one that says "Make liberals cry again." Like, why is that necessary? It's not supposed to be emotional.
So, on the Daily Show, they did a little skit, and they had a guy going around interviewing people, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, make America great again." So he asked, "When was America great?" And some of the people were like, "Oh man, like when our founding fathers came over and they first did the Constitution. He goes, oh, so what, like when slavery was big? And they were like, yeah, everything but that. And then one person was like, oh man, if we go back into the 60s and 70s when everybody had more values, and he goes, oh, and black people couldn't use the same bathrooms and water and everything but that. And they're like, yeah, everything but that. So then every time they mentioned what they considered a great period, he would bring something up. So I know where Josiah's coming from, the idea of make America great again. Because I'll be honest, I think with all of the flaws that we have, so she puts this, when was America great? I think even with all of our flaws, and I will say this, that at least from my perspective, I do think we live in the greatest country in the world. And even with all its flaws, I think we still live in the greatest country in the world. And here's why I think that. Because I can sit here and do this live broadcast and criticize certain things about our government and what needs to be fixed. And I don't have to worry necessarily about the government coming to my door and dragging me out and maybe executing me somewhere. Right? I can actually say this. It's broadcast. People can watch it. They can take clippets of it and play it again. I could sit here and have this conversation with my daughter, and my daughter could have these kinds of conversations with other people. So I think America has always had its greatness, but unfortunately, nothing is perfect, and we still have a lot of work. It's just the same that a lot of the work revolves around, as Sadie mentioned earlier, basic human rights. So here's another question I have for you. Do you remember the first time you realized how important voting for the president of the United States was?
2016 was a big one.
All right, so 2016. All right.
2012. No, it has to be 2016 because I was 12 years old in 2012, and I don't think my concern was who's going to win president of the United States at 12 years old. It didn't affect me directly to a point that I understood. At 12 years old, I was still playing Little League.
So you feel that 2016 Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton was that first one?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little story about when I realized how important voting was. And this is the craziest thing. And I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and I never really realized it until now looking back, because I remember so many details about it. So I remember when I was 7 years old, how important presidential elections were going to be. I was in, I believe, the second grade. And I even remember the little girl who sat next to me in the second grade. Her name was Ramey. Sat next to me in the second grade. We were living in Co-op City. So this was before we ended up moving out to Texas. And Ronald Reagan was running to be president of the United States. And I remember this. We talked about it in class. We drew pictures of what we thought the president of the United States should look like. So, everybody pretty much drew a podium with a man in a suit standing behind the podium. Everybody tried to draw the seal of the presidency of the United States. We even did like a mock little vote. So the teacher had like this shoebox, and everybody got to write down who they wanted to vote for. And at the time, I remember Ronald Reagan just being in the news so much. So, of course, most of the class writes down Ronald Reagan, and we fold up our paper and we put it in there, and Ronald Reagan wins our classroom election. So that was the first one I remember. Then 84, I remember Reagan running for re-election. Then 88, I remember Bush running for the president. So I got to put this up. And Ramey drew a girl. No, she actually drew Ronald, or we all tried to draw, most of us tried to draw Ronald Reagan. I think that's funny because when you think about it, we still haven't had a female president, which is, I think, a shame that we're at that point. Other countries have had female leaders, and we haven't. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But so I remember all of that as we moved through Bush, and then I remember Clinton, then Clinton. I remember Bush. But so for me, it took on a different level at the age of 7. And it's crazy that I remember all these details. And you mentioned that you were in 2016, so you were 16 years old. The first time it really resonated with you, and I think that just shows a difference in just the climate and the times that we live in. So, if you are interested in politics, can you identify a person or a moment that really triggered you trying to be more involved in the process?
Recently, AOC has been coming up on my timelines and stuff a lot. And I just find her really interesting because she's very, very young. And she's super involved. She tries to reach out, and she's a politician. However, I feel like some of her motives are more genuine. Like, she just wants to talk. She just wants to understand. Or she's not afraid to stand up for what she believes in and call people out when they disrespect her. So she's a really big one, especially recently.
So, and you know, you mentioned AOC. I love AOC. I too. I think she's awesome. And I'm gonna throw this up there. Yes, she is Puerto Riqueña, Boricua all the way. And what I like about AOC is no matter whether you're man, woman, older, younger, you can look at AOC and find something in her that you can relate to and look at her as a role model. So for me, she is just an amazing individual, especially when you think about where she came from. Right? You know, she was a waitress trying to make ends meet for her family. It's just amazing where she is now and what she is able to accomplish. So I think that's a great individual that you mentioned. I love listening to her. I love how she can inspire people to move out and kind of go forward. So what I'm going to do real quick is, Sadie, do you want to add anything else to that little discussion right there, as far as anybody else that you look at or that triggers thoughts of from a political side that you may be looking at, paying attention to?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up some election results, see if anything has kind of changed a little bit here as we are looking. So let me go ahead and...
Texas is red now.
Oops. So, you just said Texas is red, so you just looked that up. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen real quick. So we'll go ahead and add this. So right now, Texas has jumped back to red. But again, look how close it is. So it's 49.4 to 49.3 in favor of Donald Trump. Right now, based on the predictions, we're still looking at potentially saying President Joe Biden at 122 right now to 92 for President Donald Trump. We still have a long way to go. I think no matter what happens in the results, there is going to be some contesting. Oh, man. So I want to put this up because this is something your abuelo, my dad, El Leon of the family, said the JFK assassination. So, that was one of those polarizing events. And then it just wasn't just isolated, because his brother was also assassinated. Then you look, also MLK was assassinated. There were a lot of assassinations that took place in a very short period of time from that standpoint. But JFK's assassination was a huge polarizing moment from a political aspect. But yeah, when you look at it right now, again, so you mentioned Texas blue. Is there anything else that when you look at this right now, Sadie, that you're sitting there going, oh man, I can't believe that's happening? Because I'll be honest, Texas going red to me is not a surprise, but the blue piece was a little bit more of a surprise. But I mean, it's so close. Now it's a little bit different, 49.5 to 49.2. Is there anything else you notice on the board right now that triggers the idea of, oh man, this is not what I was expecting?
No, not. It's really small.
Here, I could try and blow it up for you. Let's see. That's about as big as I can get it without, let's see. Yeah, so that's about as big as I can get it on your screen.
Nothing really striking me now.
Okay. So from there, we'll go ahead and jump back into some questions for you. Yeah, so that's a picture. Did I tell you how we ended up with that picture of Sophia?
I was there.
Were you here when we scanned her face and put her picture there? So in case everybody didn't see it, my younger daughter Sophia, we scanned her face and we put it into one of the screens on my computer. So it looks like she's trapped in the screen behind one of my screens. So, oh man, so put this up. First time mom remembers. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Oh, okay, hold on. Let me go ahead to this next comment. So one of her first memories, she says, is Mita crying in the street over JFK, which kind of ties into the idea of what my dad had said about the JFK assassination. So yeah, that was one of those polarizing moments for the U.S. So I want to talk a little about what potentially could happen a little bit after the election. So kind of get your thoughts on there. So do you think the generation of new voters, you mentioned showing up in greater numbers, do you think that's something that is going to be consistent beyond this election?
If the parties stay this divided and continue to split, possibly. Yes.
So you don't think that, okay, so based on that, you don't think this is a paradigm or a thought shift that younger voters want to get out there and actually be more active. You just think this is an isolated case right now because of how divided everything seems to be.
Yes.
So
I have, like, I can make that opinion because I've heard people my age say things along those lines.
Oh, so people about your age have actually mentioned that they're active because of what is going on versus what is potentially going on from a political landscape. Is that what you're?
Yes.
All right. So what are your thoughts? Do you think you're going to stay active, or do you think you're being very active just because of what's going on?
Oh no, I'm going to vote.
All right, you're going to vote.
It's a right that I have that I'm going to take advantage of. I plan to vote in every election that I'm physically able to.
So your mom actually put that all the people outside voting spots, even the early voting, is anxiety causing. It makes me not want to vote for that person. It's almost scary. And I will say I noticed that. I went to early voting and I went right to the office of our supervisor of elections to actually put it into the envelope, not the envelope, the box. And then I tracked my ballot every time. So I would go in every couple of days to see that my ballot was actually going to be counted and put in place. And when I got the email and then I double checked it, it said, hey, your vote has been counted. Your ballot is good. I felt good from that standpoint. Sadie, we do have a question, I think, for you, and this is something you can answer. Do you think there will be more Libertarian Party votes in the future?
It depends on what happens with the Electoral College. I know that a lot of people my age especially vote major party because of the ideal of the Electoral College. I know a lot of people my age think the Electoral College is an outdated idea that needs to be adjusted. It really just depends on how that progresses, because if we still have the Electoral College, the chance of Libertarian ever actually winning is so slim. That's why you don't see that very often, if ever. So the possibility is there. However, you have to consider the Electoral College, because that can make or break an election.
Because that can make or or break from there. Just to address Josiah's question, I don't think more people will go libertarian because I think people will feel that it'll be a waste of a vote. Even in the future, just because of the two-party system, like Sadie mentioned, I think a lot of people feel that it'd just be a wasted vote if they cast for a libertarian. I think part of the problem is we have been so conditioned that it's either Democrat or Republican. Those are the two main ones that jump out. I think the only way we may see libertarian votes is if we end up with a candidate that is so much better, dynamic, outstanding than any of the other candidates on the main tickets. Then I think we could see something that can drive libertarian votes. But I think just the way our system is set up, I don't think we'll see a lot of that, which is a shame. Jumping onto another comment, younger people have always led the charge, and this also appears to be the actions now. And I tell you, when the younger generation gets it in their mind and they're moving forward, there really is no stopping. So, Sadie, I do have a question for you from the standpoint of younger voters. Did you influence or push any younger voters to not necessarily vote the way you think they should, but just to get out and vote? Do you feel any conversations you had triggered anybody to go out and make their voice heard?
Maybe not specific examples, but whenever people would ask or make comments along the lines of, I don't know if I should vote, I would encourage them to vote, because if you're not voting, I mean, that's a waste of your freedoms, in my opinion. We have the ability to vote, even if it's a hard decision. Try something.
So you said you didn't have a specific example, but that is kind of specific. Somebody's like, I don't know if I want to vote. And you're like, hey, you got to get out there and vote. And I'm always one to tell people, if you don't vote, you have no leg to stand on to argue whoever ends up in the White House at the end of the day. Yeah. So if you didn't go out and make your voice heard, and if somebody asks you, well, did you vote? And you go, no, but I think that person's garbage and trash. Well, you didn't make your voice heard. So some other things that are coming up. So COVID not going back to normal. I think that is going to impact a lot of kind of the way things are going forward. I think that is a big concern. From there, many more conversations for change. So this is your abuela talking, Sadie, and getting people to just address certain viewpoints and just having conversations. Josiah also mentioned she felt the same. She thought that the younger crowd might make the change for that. One of the things I want to ask you, again, being a first-time voter, you had mentioned the Electoral College being an outdated idea and concept. What are your thoughts on the Electoral College? Do you feel that way? And do you have a suggestion on what might be a better way of doing things? I know that's like a big question, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask that. But we just started talking about, we just started talking about, I'm not asking you to solve all the problems of everything, but did you have any thoughts about it?
I think the Electoral College needs to be updated, just because it can make or break an election so much. The ideal itself stands on solid premises. However, the Electoral College was established in a time where only white men who own land could vote. I mean, we've come a long way since then. So in the ideal that it was made to help add, because so few people voted in general, we now have everyone who can vote. So the ideal needs to still stand, but the premise of the ideal needs to still stand. However, I think it needs to be slightly adjusted to the point that it can't make or break an entire election.
Okay. So I really do appreciate that answer. I think it's a genuine answer. I think that it is something that a lot of people should step back and look at. And this is going to be the most random of random things that I just noticed. So take a good look at our screen. You and I are exact opposite. So I have blue headphones and a white shirt, and you have white headphones and a blue shirt. And we both have big old headphones on our ears. We are definitely father and daughter. I love you. I love you so much. And so, and this is something I hope people realize, that no matter the results of the election, we're going to be surrounded with people that we love, care about, and these are the people that we need to lean on, rely on to try and make things better going forward. And my daughter and I wearing these big ass headphones on our ears are the kind of people that we need to rely on. So as Sadie said, needs to be tweaked to be 21st century and beyond. So that's from your abuela making that comment again. So one other thing that I think has driven a lot of younger voters, as you mentioned, and first-time voters to the polls is the state of the country. So what do you think is going to be the state of the country after the election results are disclosed? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier. All right, so you said upsetting. So are you saying upset because you think your person is not going to win, or upsetting just in general because
no matter who wins, half of us are going to be upset and half of us are not.
Do you think you're going to be upset?
I can survive either way.
That's my girl right there. That's what I'm talking about. So, no, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Because I just had a lot of conversations with people, and one actually was an adjunct faculty member asking if he should look at canceling classes for the rest of the week, and I was like, why? He goes, man, depending on the results of the election, man, it could be bad. And I was like, bad? You mean like attendance or just people being out of it or what? And he goes, all of that. And then I stopped and went, are you referring to the students or yourself? Do you feel you know what I mean? I just didn't know where he was going with this, but the whole idea of this really weighing on people that much, I think it goes back to my man Barbecue Lou talking about the emotional toll it's going to take, and that's really what I'm concerned about. So, next question. Why do you think people are just so angry?
Because everyone's soft.
So when you say soft, explain. I know what you mean, but explain a little bit more of what you mean by soft.
I don't know.
I love the answer, by the way.
Like I said, people can't handle confrontation and direct. People can't handle direct anything. If it doesn't benefit them, they're not going to find it effective. And so they're going to pout about it because that's just how a lot of people tend to function. It's not a bad thing. It's just not what I consider a good thing.
So I do have a follow-up question to that. So would you say the way that your mother and I have raised you has helped you deal with this stuff or has hurt you in dealing with this stuff?
Helped me.
Yes. All right. So, I got you to admit, right? I got you to admit that. So, and that's why I had to throw it out there. That's why Sister Josiah throwing that out. And Josiah, just to kind of add to that, when you think about our family, so Sadie and actually all of our nieces and nephews, your kids, Bebe's kids, Cindy's kids, all of our kids, my kids, the idea of the village raising the family, I think all of our kids are going to have a slightly tougher skin because we raised them the way we were raised. And I'm going to tell this story. Hopefully my sister Bebe would appreciate this. So
what's the vacuum story?
This is the vacuum story. I told her to get up off the floor so I could vacuum the floor. And she didn't. She refused to get up and move. So I kept vacuuming closer. And I was like, if you don't, you're going to get vacuumed up and she continued to just stay laying there. And I will be honest when I say this, I did not mean to vacuum up her head, but I got too close and it grabbed her hair, and I ended up vacuuming up her hair. Some of it got ripped out of her head. But she never stayed laying on the floor again when I came with a vacuum cleaner, right? So that tough love that sometimes we gave everybody was just there. And I wish she was tuned in so she could give her thoughts on that story because that's just the way it is. I want to throw this up there. I think if Trump wins, the tensions will worsen. I also think if he wins, his second term may be shortened, whether by a JFK type scenario or by a successful impeachment. That's an interesting aspect because I've had conversations and some people had mentioned they were surprised that the impeachment process didn't work out in favor of seeing it all the way through, and that if the Senate goes a different direction, we could see a further impeachment proceedings come up and a possible impeachment kind of follow through from there. So that's awesome. So say don't be offended, Dave. Yes, it helped her. Duh. Abuelo saying that's because we do not sugarcoat anything, and I could attest to that. A lot of conversations growing up with my dad. My dad never sugarcoated anything. And I'm sure you've heard some of the stories, Sadie, and I'm sure you'll hear many more. We have another comment. I sometimes wonder if I should stop calling them turd heads. Am I toughening them up or bullying my own kids? Definitely not bullying. Definitely toughening up. Your Theo, my dad. We were all knuckleheads, right, growing up, and we didn't want to be knuckleheads anymore, so we stopped doing knucklehead stuff. Sadie, can you recall anything that maybe I called you guys growing up that you were like, yeah, I don't want to be that?
Moop.
Moops.
We used that word for years.
That's right. Boy, why are you being such a moop? That's right. So you don't want to be a moop. That is right. So here's another piece. We've been hit with too many things at once. COVID, the death of so many in the hands of the law, healthcare at stake, so much more systemized racism, on and on and on. That is true. So a lot of this does take its toll from a political standpoint. So one question I have for you, and I'll throw this up before we jump to that. That was another one. Were you Beavis or Butthead? That was another thing that we did throw out at each other. So Sadie, if your candidate for president does not win, what are you going to do?
Continue to get my degree and then graduate and then go on with my life because I get to do it again in 4 years.
Ooh, that's fire right there. I like that. So continue on with my life, get my degree, get your degree, vote in 4 years, and kind of take it on from there. So hopefully we'll end up with some good, solid presidential candidates. Damien, I'm calling on you because out of all of us, I think you'd make the best presidential candidate. I think President Rivera sounds great, and not me, but my brother Damien, I think would be a great president. So we have ouch, not towards the Damien being president, but just some of the other aspects. I think my mom was talking about the vacuum cleaner thing. So this next one, how do you think politicians should address these divisions that are taking place in our society? And I'm not just referring to presidential candidates, but hold on. Before you answer, I want to throw this up. So you guys have seen this here first. My brother Damien, 2032, looking at making a run for the presidency. And I will say it here. Donald Trump is predicting the future if he's talking about make America great again, because in 2032, when my brother becomes president, America will be moving on to becoming actually not just great again, but the greatest that it ever was. So you've heard it here first, 2032, presidential candidate Damien Rivera. I hope that does end up coming to fruition. I'll be the first one at the ballot box. Man. What were you saying, Sadie?
I started lagging really bad.
So Sadie, what do you think the politicians, and not just presidents, what should politicians do in general to help deal with some of these divides? And we're not talking about presidential candidates. We're talking about politicians in general.
I think the biggest thing is just not focus on yourself. Like, I understand that everyone makes the joke, like, oh, they're a politician. All they care about is themselves. But the point of being a politician is that you're supposed to care about the people that you represent and you serve. That's the biggest issue I have with the government. And that's everyone in the government. Biden, Trump, any other Republican or Democrat. If you say politician, everyone just assumes that all they care about is themselves. And I don't think that's the point of politics. A lot, I shouldn't say all, a lot have very selfish intentions, even if it's unintentional. If you really did care about everyone, just taking a step back, trying to have conversations, things would be better. If we could all just take a step and calm down.
So I don't know if you saw the ad. It was on the news. It was the two candidates, I think, running for Senate seats. One Republican, one Democrat running for Senate seats. And they did an ad together saying, hey, we don't hate each other. We're just doing what we think is right. But we can be civil about it. So I think that was a very positive ad. And I wish I remember who it was, because I thought that kind of ties into what you're talking about. Do you want to address this question? Why are politicians allowed to be the biggest bullies?
There's not an answer. Like, there shouldn't be an answer. It shouldn't be justified. I think politics has turned more away from making yourself look like the better candidate with your own policies and such, and just bashing the other person to make them look. It's no longer about making yourself look good. It's about making the other person look bad.
All right. Very well said.
I feel.
So a couple other comments. There's only one problem with that: money and endorsements. Yeah, that is true. And then, so Josiah, you put for Florida.
For the ad thing.
Oh, was it for Florida?
She's asking.
No, I'm not sure. Yeah, I am not sure, but I know I saw it, and I was just like, wow, I was so taken back. And here's the crazy thing, right? That should be the norm, and it's such an exception that it caught me so off guard. And okay, here we go. So this is why my brother is going to be running for president and I am not, right? So he jumped in real quick and he was like, Utah governor race is the ad that was done together. Also, Jeanette mentioned it. It was the governors for Utah that did the campaign. Thank you both for that, for mentioning that. It caught me so off guard that I didn't even focus on where they were from and all that. It just sat with me that, wow, these two people, thank you so much again, Jeanette, for this. I really do appreciate this. You guys are awesome for putting this up there. Spencer Cox and Chris Peterson. And to me, that should be the norm. That should be the norm. Respect, integrity, good leadership. And in this day and age, that is the exception to the rule. They were the exception to the rule. And it was so uplifting. Now, the crazy thing is, it caught me so off guard. I couldn't even remember who they were and what they were doing as far as the state that they were representing. So I think that was a big thing from there. So from what politicians say, I don't even know what they stand for, just what they think of what their opponent stands for. And that's another good point. A lot of times it is just the bashing on the opposite side. So right before we go to wrap up, Sadie, we're getting to this last hour. So I just want to pull up some of the current results. I'm going to do a quick screen share. So let me add this. So I know it's kind of small. So right now we are looking at 131 to 92 right now, as far as the preliminary results in favor of Joe Biden. So Sadie, the question I have for you is, do you think this is going to hold consistent moving forward through the night? And do you think when you wake up in the morning, you are going to hear the declaration of President Joe Biden, or do you think you're going to hear the declaration of President Donald Trump?
I don't know, because when I checked an hour ago, there was a lot more blue and there's a lot more red now. It's very much changing very fast.
It is, but here's
I have no idea.
But here's like what happened in 2016, where you had Hillary Clinton and everybody was like, oh, she's got the popular, but like you mentioned also tonight, the Electoral College being such an important piece of everything. So right there, you mentioned you see a lot of red, but there's a lot of electoral stuff that's flopping over the Democratic way from that standpoint. So who knows where it's going to go. I'll be honest. Before the night even started, I was telling a lot of my buddies to not get their hopes up, because I felt that President Trump was gonna win. Again, not necessarily saying that that's who I'm supporting, but I just had this feeling that that is what's going to happen. This is making me feel otherwise. Why are you shaking your head? Because I said that?
I just got a text from a friend that said both Donald Trump and Joe's heads are massive.
So, Josiah, yes, they are talking about waiting to announce, because I'm sure no matter who wins, there's going to be a lot of I'm trying to think of the word, contesting of the results. I think both sides are going to look at, no matter what results come up, there's going to be a lot of contesting of the results, and that is going to be the issue. So, Sadie, as we wrap things up, we just looked at that last piece there. To get your final thoughts on being a first-time voter, do you want to give your final thoughts on this whole process, being a first-time voter, and your thoughts of kind of for the future?
This is probably as low as separated can be. And so I'm hoping it only gets easier from here as I get older.
I was about to say, because you're far from old. So, Sadie, thank you so much for joining me tonight and sharing your thoughts on being a first-time voter. Very proud of you for actually exercising that right, because there were so many people who couldn't. And really, when you think about it, there was a point where women could not vote. So I think in you voting, you're helping to honor the women that could not vote. Also, the people of color who could not vote over time. And we also have a lot of servicemen and women who died defending this country and the ideals of this country, who are no longer able to vote. Many people that have passed away for other reasons who are were not able to vote. So thank you for exercising your right to vote. So let me go ahead and slide into this. For next week, we are going to have the Black Female Development Circle. Great, amazing group of women that I'm really excited to have on the show, and just talking about many issues from a Black woman's perspective. I don't think we get that a lot. I think a lot of times we default to Black men. So I'm really looking forward to this. Also, if anybody wants to, again, if you want to connect, have further conversations, if you're interested in a topic being displayed or posted, or you just want to be on the show yourself, on any other topic I have, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am on Facebook. You can catch me on Roll the Dice with Dave, the fan page. You could also check me out on my profile at David Rivera Jr. I am on Twitter at El Leon de Flagler. Also on Instagram, Rivera D _ the Flagler Prof. So you can look at connecting with me so we can have conversation. And just want to throw this up. Clinton won 20 states. Biden needs to win 23. So, there's a lot of stake out there. A lot of people are paying attention to this. But again, at the end of the day, I do want to add that no matter which way the results go, there are a lot of things we can do to try help move this country forward. I hope everybody is able to do that. This is the most divided I think I've ever seen. But I'm looking forward to being the positive change I can be in this world, regardless of who wins the presidency. And I hope all of you that join me can continue to do the same. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Hope all of you enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great rest of your week.